Hello, welcome to the March board meeting for the Antelope Valley Union High School District. Good afternoon. Please be advised that the Board of Trustees are participating in this regular board meeting, March 10th, 2021, with teleconferencing. The meeting is being recorded and all actions will be taken by a roll call vote. I would like to ask board members to respond to the following question as I call your name. Are you able to hear our proceedings on your end? Mr. Johnson?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That's a yes. Ms. Perrell?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Nguyen?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Thank you. And Ms. McGrady? We do not have any messages from the public on closed session items. So the Board of Trustees will adjourn to closed session to consider and may act on any of the closed session matters listed in agenda item 16.
Madam President, this is Danita Nguyen. I do have one comment.
Okay.
I know it's unusual, but I feel that I need to make this comment before we go into closed session. Because I've promised to be transparent, open, and honest. I need to let people know that this past Monday, all 5 board members received emails that threatened us and accused us of wrongdoing. Well, actually, they threatened and accused Joe McGrady, John Rush, and myself. Victoria Ruffin and Amanda Perrell were never mentioned as doing anything wrong. The emails were full of information about a lawsuit, information most of which I have never heard before. I have to wonder where is all this coming from. Some of the information these people talked about, especially about a lawsuit, would be discussed in closed session or under attorney-client privilege. The emails indicated unethical practices of Joe McGrady, John Rush, and Danita Nguyen. The emails threatened to expose all of the unethical practices if we did not vote the way they wanted us to vote. In all my years as a board member for the Antelope Valley Union High School District, I have never been threatened by community members to vote as they directed. Thank you, Ms. McGrady.
Thank you. Moving forward, I need a motion, and if I could, just because we've had some confusion about me hearing who's speaking at each time, would you please give your name as you say motion or second? For example, I would say McGrady motion or McGrady second. If you'd be willing to help me with that, I'd sure appreciate it. It would help us with any confusion. So with that being said, may I have a motion?
Danita, motion.
Okay, thank you. And that was Anita Nguyen for the motion, and I need a second.
Amanda Perrell, second.
Thank you so much. That was Ms. Perrell for the second. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Ms. Perrell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes, when you were asking for a discussion, you were asking for discussion about what?
Going to closed session.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were asking for a discussion about what Ms. Nguyen was talking about. Sure.
No, this is just because we're taking a vote to go to closed session.
Sure.
Okay, that's an aye. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye, thank you, Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Aye. Yes, and Ms. McGrady is an aye, so that is unanimous. We will be going to closed session. Board of Trustees will go to closed session, reconvene the regular meeting at 5 p.m. So board members, you will leave and come back. So we'll go to the closed session. Everyone else will see you at 5 o'clock. Thank you. Bye.
Testing.
Good evening, Mr. Shy.
Hey Gary, how are you, man?
I'm doing just fine. A little busy, but not complaining.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, later.
Later.
Gary, I just want to do a quick mic check. Am I coming across okay?
Oh, beautiful. This is yeah, you sound really, really good. A lot of
Okay,
good volume on this one.
perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening, Miss White.
Hello? Hello, hello? Hello? Hello?
Hi, Dr. Ruffin. We'll be with you in just a second, ma'am.
Okay, I have both computers connected. I just wanted to make sure you could hear me.
Yes, ma'am. Could you turn the audio off on one of them because we're getting an echo now?
Okay, let me do that. Can you still hear echo?
No, ma'am, it's better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome, sir.
You good? I'm good. Yep, I'm on now. Go ahead. What's that? The mic is on? Oh, Gary, turn it off. Oh, no, there it is.
Okay, bye.
Good evening. We'd like to reconvene the regular meeting of the Antelope Valley Union High School Board. Please stand and place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry we're running a few minutes late getting started, but we will move right on. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees adjourn to the Pinco meeting. May I have a motion to do that?
Danita motion.
Thank you. That was Anita Nguyen for the motion. A second.
Amanda Perrell, second.
Thank you, Ms. Perrell. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Ms. Perrell?
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Mrs. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. McGrady, yes. And so it is unanimous. We will go to the Pinco meeting. We do not have any public comments on the Pinco meeting. So we are at C. First, we need to, it's recommended that the Board of Trustees review the 2020-2021 Pinco second interim report and certify the financial condition of Pinco as positive. May I have a motion?
Danita motion.
Rush, thank you. A second?
I second Danita Nguyen.
Thank you. That didn't win. And I believe, Mr. Hawkins, do you have some comments for us on this?
Yes, absolutely. Just real quick, I wanted to remind everyone that Pinco is an organization that serves 33 school districts. They also serve all of the school districts here in the Antelope Valley. Therefore, every student in K-12 is affected by the good work and the of Pinco in the distribution of government commodities and food. So with that, I wanted to let you know that Pinco as a group, back on February 20th, they met out in the Lake LA area, and they donated some of their government commodity food that they're unable to process right now, meaning cook, for our students because of the COVID, the requirements we have on it. And they donated food for about 4,300 families out in the Lake LA area. And Pinco was honored with from both Senator Scott Wilk and Assemblyman Tom Lackey of receiving a state of California certificate of recognition to Pinco, and that would be for the Voices of Our Youth. That's the group that was distributing food, and they distributed more than just Pinco food, but Pinco participated in a very significant way, and was recognized for it in both the Senate and the Assembly for the state of California. I'd be happy to answer any questions specific to that or to Pinco's second interim. Because Pinco is more of a business enterprise, their revenues and expenses balance out throughout the year. And any of their excess balance is the members who maintain a reserve balance with Pinco. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Do we have any questions from the board?
Yes, this is Danita Nguyen. I do have actually just a comment. For all the years that I've been associated with the Antelope Valley Union High School District, Pinco, and Mr. Cook have done an excellent job in making sure our students are fed and offered healthy food. So thank you to the staff and to Mr. Cook.
Thank you. I too would like to add my congratulations to Mr. Cook, to you and your team. We thank you for all your hard work all the time, but particularly in these difficult times. Anyone have any questions or comments before we go for the vote?
I'll just say, as long as we're praising Mr. Cook, I have to get a piece of this. I remember last year around this time, right before we went to our distance learning model, we would hold our ICC meetings in the boardroom because we had so many people coming. And Mr. Cook and Miss Reynolds from food services came and fed our ICC class and asked us which chicken we liked better. And I will tell them that it's something that our ICC classes never forgot. So thank you to Mr. Cook and Miss Reynolds.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, hearing no further discussion. Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Ms. Perrell?
Aye.
Aye, Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye, Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. McGrady, yes, that was unanimous. It passes with all of us. We now will reconvene our regular meeting. Mr. Johnson, would you like to introduce who will be presenting tonight?
Yes, thank you, Ms. McGrady. Ladies and gentlemen of the board and cabinet, Lancaster High School.
Hello, this is Lancaster High School's ICC board presentation. I'm Julia Williamson, ASB president, and joining me is India Leonard, vice president, Chelsea Moreno, VP of activities, Roman Laredo, secretary, Michelle Munoz, treasurer, and Angel Cruz, historian. On February 26, 2021, ASB hosted a roadshow for Amargosa Creek Middle School to introduce clubs, sports, and activities we offer at Lancaster High. We had it open to receive comments and any kind of questions from the middle school students. Our school will be visited by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, aka WASC, March 8th of 2021. Lancaster High first opened in 1995 through 1996 and had our first visit in 1997 and have been a part of WASC ever since.
So just recently we had our first Panda Express fundraiser on March 3rd, 2021. It was really successful and we advertised it through our Instagram and through our principal's Google Classroom, so it's accessible to all the students.
Every week, our ASB pushes out our virtual announcements through what we call Eagle Vision. In Eagle Vision, we include any activities or fundraisers going on around campus, and we also give clubs opportunities to tell us what's going on in their clubs, such as any fundraisers happening or activities that they feel they want to make video announcements for, and we include those in our Eagle Vision. Also, we include our Teacher Spotlight, where we give appreciation to teachers and also staff. In honor of Women's History Month, we are teaming up with Women of Character Club to spotlight historical women figures that have made an impact on our world. This is an example of how ASB holds open arms to any clubs to show us what's going on in their club, and we include it in pep rallies.
Last Valentine's Day, we had a whole week of activities, and specifically our this or that activity. And it was really fun, and a lot of people participated and shared how it went for them. And also during that month was Black History Month, where a group of students from our ASB class and all students chose famous historical African American figures that inspired them. And we made flyers about them and put them in Eagle Vision and also posted them in our Instagram account.
We have an upcoming rally in the works. This is our second one of the school year, and we have a Spirit Week included with it called Week of Challenges. We also have a senior spotlight included in our pep rally, and our mission is to help them in any way and give support.
Thank you for joining us, and have a nice day.
Thank you, Ms. McGrady, and thank you for Mr. Allen for putting that together for the board. Our ICC class met today, and our next meeting is scheduled for April, about an hour before the board meeting. So thank you, Ms. McGrady.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and thank you to our students from Lancaster High School. We are so happy to have you present for us this evening. Our next order of business is 6B, the Antelope Valley Schools Transportation Report Update. Mr. Hawkins, do you have an update for us?
Currently, we don't have an update. AVUHSD is just working and waiting to see when schools can open, and then they'll start working on transportation schedules for students to their home schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving forward, we're at 6C for the district update, return to in-person instruction, activities, athletics, vaccinations, academies of the Antelope Valley, charter expansion. Mr. Nehan.
Good evening, members of the board and the listening public. We wanted to take a few moments and just give you an update about where we are with returning students to campus for both instruction as well as for other extracurriculars. And then also want to give you an update with regards to the AAV charter and the presentation we heard at the last meeting. Next slide, please. So as we've shared before, we brought students back, special education students in stable cohorts back in October. And then due to some rising case rates, we took preventive action and had those students finish out first semester at home and then went through spring break. And then in the middle of February, we brought back stable cohorts for special education students at all of our comprehensive campuses. Currently, we have about 175 students reporting to campus every day for in-person support and instruction with their teachers and supporting staff. And everybody couldn't be happier to have kids back on campus. The next step that we took last Monday, March 1st, we welcomed back 12th graders. We had 416 across the district to come for an hour and a half, 2 days a week. And so that would be from 1:30 until 3 o'clock. And they're in stable cohorts of no more than 14 with a teacher. And they're receiving some organizational, some time management, some motivational pieces from these teachers, as well as some focused study time. And these high need students were seniors who were in danger of not graduating. This past Monday, we welcomed back 872 ninth graders across the district, again, stable cohorts. And these were ninth graders with some academic challenges or struggles. Started out a little bit different with them. The focus wasn't right on academics, but wanted to create a welcoming environment to do some team building, some spirit building, some community building within these classes. We have to be mindful that we will have, that this is the first opportunity that our freshmen have set foot on their high school campus. We wanted to make it special for them, and all of our campuses went to great lengths to make this a memorable opportunity. Teachers will continue to work with these students on social emotional learning, as well as some community building, and then work into the academic supports. Again, the putting structures in place for organization, for time management, and then putting a plan in place for each individual student to get back on track academically. The third wave of these students will come back next Monday, March 16th. And this group will be determined by the sites. Again, stable cohorts, no more than 14, and you can't exceed 25% of your student enrollment at any time on campus. But these will be a variety of different students with different needs. Again, all fall into the category of high need, but these students may look a little bit different than our 12th and 9th graders from campus to campus. With some positive news out of California Department of Public Health. Next slide, please. Yesterday in LA County, the adjusted case rate was 5.2 cases per 100,000. And under the state's newest guidance, that qualifies Los Angeles County to move into the red tier. And that changes some of the parameters with which we could have students back on campus. We're waiting for further clarification from Los Angeles County Department of Health of what stable cohorts now look like in the red tier. But as we're doing that, we're preparing for students to return to some in-person instruction with both staff and students are really looking forward to. And we would conduct this in our at-school blended learning model. And we've already put that schedule in place, and students they'll follow the same schedule, but students who choose to return to the in-person instruction will come to each one of their classes over the course of 2 days. They'll see each of their classes one day a week. While we're waiting for further clarification and waiting for the LA County to move into the red tier, staff has been readying our campuses for larger scale returns of students. We've notified staff yesterday in the form of an email just that these are the steps that we're taking, and these are some hypotheticals of what it could look like. And then we also sent out a survey to our parents, asking them how they would prefer their students to finish out the remainder of this school year. And then we've also begun ramping up our PD for staff on how do we best support them and how can teachers best support students in the blended learning environment. So things are beginning to move very quickly. We're very excited at the prospect of having more students back on campus, and to share in some of that excitement, I turn it over to Brett Neal with some exciting updates about activities and athletics.
Thank you, Mr. Nean. I appreciate that very much. And thank you, board, for the opportunity to share a little bit about some updates in the athletic realm and updates in the activity realm. Also, to give you some great information and updates that we have as it relates to the vaccination protocols and practices that we have for our employees. So just as from a timeline standpoint in the area of athletics, if you can recall back late summer, students were allowed to begin conditioning and skill building in small cohorts with mitigating protocols in place, wearing masks and being distanced. And so we wanted to encourage our students to be part of that. And let me preface all of what I'm going to be saying tonight with the fact that we are analyzing and wanting to make sure that we are adhering to all Department of Public Health guidelines, state and county, especially county. So as we look at implementing these activities, these processes, we want to make sure that we're analyzing what those guidelines, recommendations, and requirements are from the Los Angeles Department of Public Health so that we can adhere to those and make sure that we have adequate and appropriate programs for our students, but also mitigating the spread of the COVID virus. So we did allow our students in small groups working with our coaches to do some conditioning and skill building late summer. As we moved into the holiday season, as you recall, the case rates did spike, and there was some concerns throughout the county and the state of that. And so we paused the conditioning and skill building and went back to full distance learning and made sure that we were doing what we could do to protect our students and staff. But then as case rates began to drop, we saw in January and February the opportunity to return under those guidelines and recommendations from the Department of Public Health, return to conditioning and skill building. And then just lately, as case rates continued to drop even further, we have been given the green light to do some outdoor sport program competitions. They are permitted. The indoor sports have been approved at the state level with some testing requirements. However, we are waiting to hear if there's any further guidance and guidelines from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, and hopefully sometime soon we'll hear of where we can be with our indoor sports programs. And as we look at those indoor sports, or excuse me, at the sports programs that we have, all of our Golden League outdoor sports programs have been scheduled. Our cross country have been participating in practices and meets. Football programs have started, and we have a 5-game shortened schedule that our athletes can participate in. Our first game is actually scheduled for March 19th. Soccer, and then into the spring season, girls soccer, baseball, softball, boys and girls golf, boys and girls tennis, track and field, and swimming are all scheduled and anticipating the start of the season into later March and April. So we look forward to our student athletes being part of that. Activities is a little bit different. There's specific guidance for activities. And so we continue to work through the Los Angeles County Department of Health as they provide us guidelines related to activities on campus. And I know there has been concerns regarding our cheerleaders, our band students. And at this point, the guidance has been really not to allow that. However, the questions have been asked, and the Department of Public Health is analyzing that to determine whether or not they can loosen some of those restrictions. So hopefully we would be able to see some new guidance as it relates to cheerleading and band, hopefully in the near future. And then looking at the permissibility of allowing clubs, activities, cohorts to meet on campus, maybe in an after-school setting, kind of keeping in mind those small, stable cohorts, if that is feasible to do, and look forward to seeing if that is a possibility and begin that as well as soon as possible. Next slide, please. So some vaccine updates. As you may know, we a number of weeks ago established a partnership with the Antelope Valley Hospital here, our local hospital. The hospital was receiving doses for educators, and we have received a total of 1,250 allocations for those first 2 weeks, and we are finishing up our 2 weeks here this week. And at this point, we have had over 1,100 of our employees request appointments, which is exciting. That is roughly close to 50%. Not only are they requesting appointments through our partnership, but many of them have received vaccinations through their own providers, their own doctors, Kaiser, pharmacies, different places like that. So at this point, we have had 777 of our employees during these first 2 weeks have received their first round of vaccinations. All of our employees who wanted appointments have been offered appointments, and we're hoping to see large numbers this week and see what happens in the following weeks for additional individuals wanting to be vaccinated. And if I could, let me just personally give out a shout out to Christina Ramos, our Director of Personnel, who has tirelessly worked with the hospital staff to provide scheduling appointments for our employees, and has reached out and has done a fantastic job of ensuring those who want a vaccine through this partnership can be scheduled. And again, it is not mandatory at this point. It is voluntary. So we're excited to partnership and have Christina take the lead on that. In addition, a shout out does need to go to our Director of Human Resources, Danny Ramos, as well as a number of our personnel techs here in the office who have manned registration booths over at the hospitals and have checked in our employees to get their vaccines, and many of them spending hours into the evening working and providing support for our employees. So again, thank you, Christina and Danny, and our techs who've been helping out in that area. Looking at additional allocations through LACO, we've received some one-time codes for individuals to receive vaccines through Cal State Los Angeles, through Kaiser, and currently we have 55 of those employees who have requested those codes. And as of this afternoon, all employees who have requested an appointment have been accommodated. And so we're looking for additional opportunities to work with our partners out at the hospital, and we'll continue to reach out to our employees to offer this service. So thank you, board, for the opportunity. And at this point, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Nehan.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. And then also just wanted to include, based on staff's presentation from the Academies of the Antelope Valley at the last board meeting, had district staff do some additional research on what it would take to add a grade level to the prep academies under the charter for the Academies of the Antelope Valley. And we determined that this would require a material revision of the charter. And also based on some more recent charter legislation, the current charter petition would need to be updated to include all new statutory requirements they're requirements that the district has always had to follow, but they're new for charters. So we need to update the current petition to reflect those. And in order to receive or welcome sixth graders in the coming fall, timely action would be needed to be ready to welcome those students on our campuses. At this point, we're happy to answer any questions for you. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Nehan and Mr. Neal. This is Dr. Ruffin. Great presentation. I had a few questions, if you will. It's just several different questions. One, I wanted to know how many of our current, do we have any current COVID cases within our district? How are we contract tracing for the students who are already back and planning to come back? How many students, well, you already answered the question about who has agreed to come back and teachers, but I didn't hear how many teachers are who have agreed to come back. And I know that there is a blended classroom process that's in place. Is there also a modified class size considering the social distancing that we're doing? And I'm just going to put the questions out there and you guys can come back and collaborate with that. I think I heard you guys say that the district has 416 seniors that are in jeopardy to some degree of, or at risk of a hardship with graduating, and that those are the seniors that came back. Was that correct?
So to clarify, of the students that we reached out to that were seniors, there were 416 that have decided or made the choice to come back on campus for additional supports. I don't have the number of students who are struggling making progress towards graduation at this point, but 416 is the total number that decided to come back on campus for some additional high need support.
Okay, and not all of them are seniors, right?
No, all of that number 416 are seniors.
Okay. And then if you could just too, when you give some feedback, how are we doing with our PPE support for these students? And when you guys mentioned the support for our athletes, I know that this is good. I'm going to have some questions in regard to this when I ask questions about the LACO, but because they mentioned issues with transporting, how are we dealing with the transportation issues for our athletes? Are they expected to get their own transportation? I'm just thinking about the social distancing issue for those athletes, and the cleaning of their their uniforms and their supplies and that type of thing with the COVID concerns.
So Dr. Ruffin, this is Brett Neal. I'll take a stab at some of that. And if I miss anything, I apologize. Just you could redirect me back to the topics. But if I could start with contact tracing, you had mentioned that. We do have a process in place that we actually developed and began implementing way back last March and April last spring, as we were looking at bringing employees back on campus after those first couple of weeks. And that is done through a number of our staff people here in personnel, as well as our district nurse. And they have a quite detailed process of how to identify individuals that may have been exposed or may have symptoms. And it is a tracing process. They have a list of questions that they go through and ask those individuals to determine if there are other individuals that they may have come in contact with. It's determined whether or not they may have been exposed off work sites or on work sites. And we do encourage those that may have been exposed or developing the symptoms to get tested. At this point, in the last 2 weeks, we have had 3 positive cases, no new classified staff, and none of those transmissions or cases were traced back to contact or exposure at the workplace. And it's been completed, as I said, by our district nurse. Danny Ramos assists with that, and it really is in conjunction, and we're working close together with the Department of Public Health on tracing that and then providing Department of Public Health with notifications. I think you mentioned about teachers teaching our small group cohorts. Mm-hmm. We have reached out to teachers who are interested in coming back and teaching those cohorts. And again, it's not necessarily subject specific. It's for students that may be struggling in multiple areas. And so a lot of the teachers are using their skills on helping students get organized or overall educational skills and methods to help those students. And right now we have approximately 150 individual teachers who have volunteered, and that has covered the needs of our students at this point. You mentioned PPE, our protective equipment for our employees and our students. And again, way back since last spring, have been ordering and sending out to the sites, and the sites sending out to classrooms that equipment. And we want to let everyone know, and we have throughout our communiques, that whatever they need, we'll make sure that we provide it. And we keep an ample supply here at the warehouse to ensure that if things start getting low on campus, that we have it there. So we have, again, under the guidance of the DPH and working with them of what is needed, we have ordered that and are providing that and have provided it under our campuses for our employees and our students. The same way with cleaning. I know you'd mentioned cleaning uniforms. That would be the normal process that students would do in cleaning their uniforms, but we have our cleaning protocols in place as it relates to equipment. And again, we're outdoors, we're not indoors, so we're outside in the fresh air. But most importantly, we're ensuring that during the conditioning and skill building time and practices, that our coaches are making sure that our kids are properly spaced out when we can, wearing masks when they can, and translating that into game time as well. I'll probably take a stab at transportation real quick in looking at transportation for our athletes. Yes, we will provide transportation when needed, whether it's through working with AV Transportation Agency or using our site vans. Coaches know to make sure that our kids are spread out. And we are also encouraging where parents can to allow parents to bring their kids to and from games as well. So I know that was quick. Hope I was able to answer all of your questions there.
No, that was great. I mean, I know, thank you for answering those. The reason why the transportation was very important is because this is, a pandemic, and it's just us as a district reimagining those levels of support for our students. My last questions, because there was a lot, I just wanted to break it up, was in regards to the last part for Ms. Nehan about the material revisions of the charter in regards to bringing on sixth graders. Will this mean we are no longer considered just primarily a high school district? And how does that impact us taking away ADA from the feeder schools around us?
So the first to your first question, Dr. Ruffin, no, we would still be a high school district. We're a high school district that authorizes a charter, and this would just be included in that charter. So it doesn't change our status as a high school district. The second piece of this is not ADA motivated. It's taking into account the data that those students were able to produce and the successes they were able to produce being a part of that academy, and then also some of the research that staff presented around starting some of these programs in the sixth grade. So it's really working with the students' best interest in mind and not focusing on ADA.
Thank you, Mr. Dehan. I would like to propose while we're talking about it that staff would move forward with that material revision of the charter. And because time is so important, if you could do that just as soon as possible, we would really appreciate that. Bring it back to us as quickly as you can. Thank you.
Duly noted.
I believe, Mr. Johnson, I believe you had a comment or question.
Yes. With the charter first, I've talked about it last meeting. I've been a part of this program, and I think that the sixth grade would be a terrific idea. So I echo what Ms. McGrady said. So I've spoken to, actually, I have a question for Mr. Nehan first. I saw that there was a survey sent out to parents on which model that they would get. Are there further plans to send a survey out to students or staff to get their opinions on matters?
So the models were put in place last year, and then we refined them over the summer. And we were trying to put something in place with regards to how can we best support all of our students with minimal disruption to their schedules. And with sending out the survey to parents, we noted when we received input from seniors, there was far less motivation than from our freshmen to return, and we think that parent input is important in that. If you could clarify what type of solicitation would we be looking for from teachers and students to finish out this school year?
Well, I agree that putting with the parents was perfect and it was a good idea to move, but I think what I'm more referring to here is that we both know that the hybrid model is not a perfect model and that it has lots of flaws and lots of concerns that people have. More concern, what I'm speaking of about a survey is more fixing some of the problems with a hybrid model that may come up.
I'd be happy to take a look at some potential questions. We always want feedback from our teachers and students, so be happy to give that some further consideration.
Thank you. So I had attended a meeting today with dozens and dozens of students, and I have about 5 pages of questions. And obviously, this is not the place, but you would be willing to go read through all of these for us?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Mr. Nehan, and thank you, Mr. Neal. It was a great presentation. I'm happy with the vaccination part. I know my parents just got the vaccination. The numbers look really good for us. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
Ms. McGrady, this is Danita Nguyen. I do have just a couple of comments real quick.
Sure.
Actually, one is a question. I've had parents ask me, are they going to be able to view the sporting events?
Ms. Nguyen, I can answer that. We, again, under the guidance of the Department of Public Health, spectators will be limited. However, what we will have is a process to provide each athlete with up to what we'll refer to as tickets, 3 tickets for family units, for individual family units to come and view. the sporting events. And again, we want to make sure that we're keeping the protocols in place of distancing and wearing masks and those. But we feel that we can provide household units with up to 3 tickets for each event for every athlete.
Oh, that is wonderful, because the rumor is right now among a lot of parents that they're not going to be allowed to watch their student athletes. So thank you very much for that. And I want to compliment your department. I've talked to several employees who have said the vaccinations went smoothly. They didn't spend more than a half hour. They were in and out. It was nice to see other Antelope Valley Union High School District employees at the vaccination sites. I've heard nothing but good things about how well it was handled. So thank you.
You're welcome. And if I could just quickly share, for many of our employees, this was the first time that some of them saw each other face to face. So they were excited about doing that as well.
Yes, they were. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Neal. Thank you, Mr. Neeham. We appreciate it so much. We are now at 6D, Mr. Dan Shy from ADTA. Mr. Shy, are you with us this evening?
Hello, Mrs. McGrady. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Nice to have you here.
Yes. First, I want to wreck Eli's world, and the Giants are going to finish like 4th with the Dodgers in 1st. So sorry, Eli. Another season of the Giants not winning. All right. I'd first like to thank the personnel department for partnering with AV Hospital and making vaccines available to our employees. I actually got my first shot yesterday, and going with what Ms. Wynn said, the process was seamless and well organized, and I was out of there in 20 minutes. So thank you to the personnel department. I'm not going to again chime in to say thank you to Christina Ramos, but she's really running that show, and so thank you. We're approaching the time when students will be allowed back on campus for face-to-face instruction. Everyone knows that there is much work to be done at the campuses to get them ready for the safe return of the students and staff. We are fortunate though, because honestly, I have extreme confidence that the district will ensure that we are all returning to a safe environment. They will take the actions necessary to make that so. On a different note, our regular bargaining season is upon us. I've been doing this a while. Some in my membership would say too long, but I always look forward to meeting with Mr. Neal and the district's bargaining team at the table. There may be some really unique things coming from this bargaining season, all right? Unique things in the sense that we would be set aside from every other district in the state of California, but I will let Mr. Neal tell you about them when the time is right. In closing, thank you, Ms. McGrady, Ms. Wynn, and Mr. Rush for your courageous vote at our last meeting to approve the purchase of fresh fruits and vegetables for our students. I know exactly how controversial that topic can be, and you should be applauded for standing up to these anti-fruit and vegetable members of this board. That's all I have for tonight. You all have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shy. We are moving forward. We're at E from CSEA, Mrs. Karen White. Mrs. White.
Good evening. How are you doing tonight?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Well, at least I'm not wet, so I'll take that. But good afternoon. Even though we don't have too much of a sun out there, soon one of these afternoons we will have a lot more of that to enjoy. But I want to address you, Ms. McGrady, the fellow board members, student board member, Mr. Johnson, Dr. Vieira, board cabinet, Mr. Furno, and Ms. Orozco. You know, it seems like the months are beginning to accelerate as we begin to look to springing forward this weekend. And we are also getting closer to having our students return to campuses for in-learning. It's just coming really fast for us. I too would like to congratulate Mr. Cook, to him and all of his staff for such a wonderful recognition and for all that they do, not only for our students, but also for our communities that don't really come apparent, and they are always there. I also want to take a quick moment to thank Rachel Orozco, because she's always made sure that I get a notice for our board meetings and also the link to attend them. And that's great because it helps me, because then I don't have to try to remember to ask for one. You're greatly appreciated, Rachel, and I just wanted you to know how much I value everything that you do for us. So thank you. Our participants in the Para-Education Conference that was held last week, they returned with an abundance of information, which they're still reviewing. But last night they expressed their excitement and their appreciation to the district for affording them this opportunity. And they're already looking forward to next year. It was that impressive for them. Before this next month comes around, CSEA will be submitting our sunshine articles to the district for review and approval by the next board meeting. And then, as Mr. Shai said, there's negotiations. I want to thank the district too for all of those who work so diligently and for all of their efforts in getting our educators their vaccines. I know you have brought a gift of relief to so many of those who were wanting to get those started. And I know that they look forward to their second dose. And I know that those hours were one of gratitude that they received from the members that were there. And we really appreciate everything that you have done. With mentioning this, I also want to extend my appreciation to someone that is outside our district family, because she continues to provide our valley with information about the positive efforts and success of our district, as well as shining a light on the accomplishments of our students all year long. I want to thank Miss Julie Drake of the Valley Press for that article on the district rolling out the vaccines, with pictures of para-educator Morgan Smith from Knight High School, RN Ashley McInnes, our district accountant Sam Miso, and also including a quote from our HR director, Mr. Ramos. You know, her article expressed the excitement and joy that was very abundant on that first day. And I know it was on every day thereafter. You know, she provides the recognition for the success of our students and the pride we have, which was evident with Mr. Stockdale's presentation last month. You know, the picture on the front page of the paper confirmed that there are no limits to what our students can achieve, all because of the efforts of the teachers, the staff, and the district to provide every student that opportunity. And I know that the students were excited to see this picture and the article as well. So thank you, Julie, for continuing to do a great job and letting those who aren't at the board meetings the ability to see what we're achieving. As we begin to address our new challenges, I know that communication is essential. And I want to thank the district for the continued district updates that they send out to our members and to our community families. We recognize that coverage for some of these sport events that are held after hours will be taxing, but it's not something that cannot be overcome. However, I do want to make sure that there is no misunderstanding with some of these work hour adjustments. These accommodations are temporary and aren't considered, nor will they constitute any past practice intentions for the future. But we will be there, just like we always have been. We still have bumps in the road, but we do have the means and the desire to smooth each obstacle that arises, and we can look forward to getting back on track with the return of our students. So for anybody that has to be driving in our inclement weather tonight, I hope that you will drive safely. Please continue to adhere to our protocols as COVID-19 appears to decline. And don't forget to spring forward so you can enjoy that daylight at the end of your workday next week. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. White. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. We will now move forward to 6F, public comments. I believe we have comments from the floor on agendized items and non-agendized items. So we will begin with the agendized items, please.
There are 2 comments for agenda item number 10 this evening. The first comment comes from a concerned citizen. I find it very interesting that the district, who is celebrating National Nutrition Month, has 2 sitting board members that voted against providing fresh fruits and vegetables for our students. These same 2 board members from Area 4 and Area 5 continuously claim to be for the students, yet their consistent action proves otherwise. Please, please, please resign so that members of the community don't have to wait 2 years for new board members that will actually prioritize the students of the district. The next comment is from Frustrated in Palmdale. Looking at the board agenda to see that Courts Hill once again gets priority over other schools in the district for repairs is very heartbreaking. As a teacher at Palmdale High School, I have spent years walking around campus to damaged pavement, and in the last few years, some, not all, of the damaged areas have been spray painted to mark them. Not only is this not a solution, it continues to be dangerous for both students and staff. Why is it that the safety of the students and staff cannot be considered at all campuses? I'm not sure if this is a district level issue or if the district is just unaware of the severity of the terrain of all campuses. Is this a lack of communication between the site and the district? I don't know, but it needs to be resolved. That concludes the comments for agendized items this evening.
Okay, thank you. We move forward to G for the non-agendized items, please.
For non-agendized items, we had 3 comments that were submitted that were all identical with the exception of one sentence, which I will highlight when I read that. Greetings. I apologize. Those were from Baron Gardner, Nashawn Mitchell, and Anonymous. Greetings. Again, my concern is in regard to the LASD Partnership Committee. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of the discussion on the role of LASD and AVUHSD. I commend the effort to expand the committee's size as well as scope and agreeing to base the conversations around data. I would ask that we discuss the relevant data in their community survey and the latest settlement agreement update as it pertains to our contract with LASD. I was able to find the student arrest data from 1819 on the district website. Could this information be disaggregated by race and gender to be discussed Thursday? It did stand out to me as strange that the resource officers were present at the virtual meeting, describing the positive role they play on campus and why they should be there. This is an obvious conflict of interest. Let me also say that I was quite nervous about making any critical comments right in their presence. Having them present in the meeting is a deterrent to open and honest dialogue. When I brought this up at the meeting, the deputies themselves were kind enough to explain to me why they were present, volunteering their time as an act of service. No one else even addressed the comment. We just went on as if I never said it. How is this okay? It seems strange that such a concern would have to be brought up in the first place. On what grounds can it be justified, having 2 resource officers present during this discussion? I hope this message is received with a positive spirit in the interest of a relevant and robust exchange. In addition, on Baron Gardner's comment, he included, it can be intimidating, criticizing men in uniform, even virtually. The next comment is from James Tilton. Hello, board. As a foster parent, I was lucky enough to get my 2nd vaccination shot last week. The experience was not a pleasant one. As studies have shown, the side effects from the 2nd vaccine dosage can be significant, resulting in 24 to 48 hours of cold or flu-like symptoms. The symptoms have been significant in many cases, including my own. I bring this up because I think it's worth considering as you create a timeline for when teachers and students will return to campus. Most teachers will be receiving their second dosage during the first or second week of April. And based on my experience and the numerous studies, many of those teachers will need to take the next day or two off. I'd ask you to consider that as you create your timetable for a return, it seems less than ideal if students return to campus and 20 to 40% of the staff needs to take sick leave that same week. I'd encourage you to instead to consider a mid-April return, ideally one that would allow for teachers to receive the full 6-week benefit of their vaccine. By pushing that opening date back just 2 weeks from the April 5th date currently being discussed, we can ensure teachers and students are as safe as possible. Thank you for your time. In addition, Mr. Tilton submitted, as a teacher, I support the movement to cancel the AVUHSD contract with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. Even a good cop sends the wrong message to our students. A case study conducted in Texas revealed that the placement of a police at a Texas school led to a decline in both high school graduation rates and college enrollment rates. Another study in New York found that Black male students saw a decline in their test scores in the years after school resource officers were placed at their school. This data suggests that the academic achievement gap, which we as educators all work so hard to close, is actually being maintained and even widened by the presence of law enforcement on campus. The constant presence of uniformed law enforcement in the front office and squad cars in the parking lot is telling our marginalized students that educators see them as problems and as threats, rather than as scholars and world changers. Such messaging, even at the subconscious level, can be devastating to the motivation and drive of our students. They deserve better. The next comment is from Concerned Voter. Ms. Nguyen, why are you so concerned with Dr. Ruffin's procedures and her only being requested to be drug tested during her onboarding to the AVUHSD? White women always trying to excuse a wrong with a right that has been given to them. For your information, you cannot take away the harm that happened to Dr. Ruffin as a Black woman when she was onboarded in 2018. Who are you reporting to? She does not report to you. One thing for sure, you have all wronged Dr. Ruffin and continue to, years later, to disrespect her with your white privilege. We are standing with you, Dr. Ruffin. Do not let them patronize you. The next comment is from Dakota Des Sunset. Dr. Ruffin, happy Women's Her Story Month. Thank you for standing up for our students and community. Your voice is needed and valued. Be careful every time you speak, Ms. McGrady and Furnow teaming up, ready to snatch your lungs out. They hate when you speak truth to power and will make up any excuse to silence your voice. If this was the Jim Crow era, you would be a strange fruit in a tree. Please seek legal support to protect yourself. I fear for your safety around these people. You are not safe. The community can feel the hate they are giving you. The next comment is from Haley. The community should be allowed to submit comments 72 hours in advance to the board when the agenda is released. Stephanie Jill McGrady, are you really the bully that the mailing said you are? Sure seems like it here with the trio voting to suppress the community's voice and your unwillingness to allow our submissions to have input. Knowing most of us work during the window you have open to submit. What are you hiding, Stephanie? Are you really about diversity and inclusion? Of course you are not. This is about protecting your family's personal business, the AVUHSD. The next comment is from Beth Cayentano. We are a coalition of community organizations and leaders from the Antelope Valley calling for the end of law enforcement violence and racism in our communities. We launched our campaign, #CancelTheContractAV, last week, which you can read about in the Antelope Valley Press and the Los Angeles Times. As part of this campaign, we are calling on the Antelope Valley Union High School District, AVUHSD, to not renew the contract with the LA County Sheriff's Department, LASD, to police our Antelope Valley schools. Furthermore, we are calling for AVUHSD to lead a transparent and inclusive process with students, parents, teachers, and community stakeholders to reimagine and reinvest how more than $1.6 million that is annually spent on these services could be spent to best support our local students. While it's good to see off-campus suspensions have gone down from 2013 to 2019, it is very concerning that while African Americans make up only about 18% of the student population, they continue to make up the majority of these suspensions. Likewise, it is good to see expulsions dropping dramatically, and while African American students are no longer the leading group being expelled, they are still overrepresented among expelled students given their overall representation of the student body of 18%. Last summer, AVUHSD alumni and teachers shared their harrowing experiences and that of school peers interacting with LASD on campus. Many shared witnessing humiliating searches and arrest of students on campus that disrupted and traumatized their educational experiences. One person shared how their experience seeing a Black student who was also in foster care be subjected to an invasive and humiliating on-school campus search by LASD that turned up nothing. During this incident, another LASD sheriff made racist remarks to her about the student. Another shared how LASD drew guns on her and another female student for allegedly stealing candy from a local store. AVUHSD must do better. The experiences of our students with LASD are not happening in a vacuum, but in the broader context of racist and unconstitutional policing that LASD has been providing in the Antelope Valley for decades. For instance, a 2013 investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, found that Lancaster-Palmdale LASD deputies engaged in a pattern of misconduct against Black and Latino residents. Antelope Valley residents have also been the victims of the excessive and deadly force in the community and even in LASD jails. It has also been documented that LASD deputy gangs have a presence in the Antelope Valley Sheriff Station. In 2015, much of this resulted in the US DOJ settling a lawsuit against both cities and LASD for their Section 8 housing discrimination and constitutional rights violation against them.
This is Dr. Ruffin. I vote to continue to listen.
What's the consensus of the board?
I agree. This is Ms. Burrell.
Yes, I agree too.
Okay,
I agree.
thank you.
Settling a lawsuit against both cities and LASD for their Section 8 housing discrimination and constitutional rights violation against Black and Latino residents. In summary, we are asking that you stand with us on the right side of history in 2021, operate with us in truth, and racially heal our nation and our community. We must end this vicious cycle of the school to prison pipeline, especially within our Antelope Valley community. Today, our task is simple. Do not renew or sign a contract with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department for the protection, safety, and building of our youth and young adults. The next comment is from Alina Schofield. At the last board meeting, I was offended and appalled by people in the community coming after school board member Dr. Victoria Ruffin on the chat. Not surprisingly, it has been the same few people who have had a beef with her in the past few months because it's personal for them. This forum serves as a platform for students to make things better for them, not a place to argue and accuse. The individuals that are accusatory are under the radar themselves and have garnered a reputation of ill repute. Then they act emotionally distressed, harassing Dr. Ruffin. The sad thing is, a few of you work for this district. Why would parents want teachers like this teaching their children? The board has one employee, the superintendent. That is who the board can hire and fire only. All other people are hired and fired by the superintendent of this district. This is fact. The board can approve or disapprove a contract. That's it. You all need to talk about what you know and stop spreading falsehoods. Last, Jill McGrady, you are plain wrong. Please stop suppressing our voice to speak in this forum by limiting when we can submit our comments from 1 to 3 p.m. the day of. We should be able to submit at the time the agenda is released. This is a form of control. You are all trying to control the masses. The next comment is from Christopher Galliano, Highland High School 2010 graduate. Hello, my name is Chris Galliano and I graduated from Highland High School in 2010. Since then, I've gone to graduate from UC Irvine in 2015, and I'm currently in my third year of law school at UCLA. My family and I have been residents of Palmdale since 1998. I also attended Ocotillo Elementary and Hillview Middle School. As a product of the community's public schooling system, I write to express my concern regarding the longstanding relationship between the district and the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, which I believe directly implicates the LASD Partnership Committee. For years, we've heard stories from alumni and students about the humiliating and invasive interactions students, in particular marginalized students, have had with LASD. That said, I would like for the committee to discuss the relevant data in their recent community survey and the latest settlement agreement update involving the broader LASD department, especially how that implicates the district's contract with LASD. Given the direct impact LASD has had on Black and Latino communities, I, like many others, am also interested in disaggregating the student arrest data from 1819 available on the district's website. Is this data available by race and gender, and can this be discussed Thursday? The next comment is from Joel Plantiga. To our trustees, Dr. Vieira and staff, I am reaching out to ask for consideration of including girls volleyball in the plan to bring athletics back for spring of 2021 and authorizing a return to competition for all of our schools' girls volleyball teams. If we truly follow the science, we will consider more than strict epidemiology. Science includes psychology, physiology, and sociology, among many other fields of study. The epidemiology tells us that no discernible spread of COVID-19 can be traced to volleyball or any other competitive sport, except for when they gather in social settings. Every other state has shown this to be true. The psychology tells us that student athletes, particularly girls, benefit greatly from participation in sports in terms of self-confidence, identity, and the benefits of being on a team. The physiology shows that athletics is an important weapon to combat sedentary lifestyle that the current restrictions have led so many to. Girls volleyball has the second highest participation rate of girls sports in California prior to the pandemic. I've watched firsthand as my daughter has struggled with the realities of not being able to play for her school. She doesn't understand why high school students in almost every other state can play, but she can't. She doesn't understand why college volleyball teams in California can play, but she can't. She also doesn't understand why certain teams like football and boys volleyball are being given the green light to return, but girls volleyball can't. While I celebrate their return, I agree with her 100%. Is this how we celebrate a month dedicated to women's contributions to society? We're blessed enough to have been able to have her participate in some club events through the pandemic, but many families don't have those means. As we wrestle with equity and the issues of justice, how are we serving girls who don't have the means to participate in club athletics if we don't make every possible effort to give them some semblance of a season this year? Where there's a will, there's a way. Logistics work out when logic is followed. Give them a chance and give all of us, booster clubs, parents, and the community, the chance to help you make it happen. Let them play and help us lobby CIF to extend their season. This is urgent, and I thank you for your consideration. The next comment is from Maisha Lopez. Due to growing police brutality that has plagued our nation over this past summer, as well as our history, I believe that it is completely inappropriate to have sheriffs on school campus. My father, Michael Thomas, was murdered in his own home just down the street from Lancaster High. I can't imagine the same officer that shot and killed him being able to walk on campuses and do the same to any student. Lancaster as a city and the sheriffs as a group have a long-standing history of racism, and now is the time to stop the brutality of our youth and to end the school to prison pipeline, end the contract with LASD, and give our kids a chance at life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as it is their rights as Americans. The next comment is from future Mayor of Palmdale. Greetings, thank board members and the community. With the lack of representation for people of color in the Antelope Valley community, I believe it is truly disheartening that anyone would question the integrity of the only Black school board member and not question any other member. It is wrong, and the need for students of color to be represented is crucial. Moreover, Dr. Ruffin has served the community well and has garnered an excellent reputation with parents, and many community leaders support her. Dr. Ruffin is very much an asset to our community. The onslaught against her by a few members of the community should be addressed and stopped. Tolerance should not be inclusive of verbal abuse and harassment in a public community forum against an elected school board member voted in by the community. We trust that Dr. Ruffin will continue to make a positive and significant impact in our community. The next comment is from Hal Steinberg. Dear board members, as a Lancaster resident and concerned community member, I strongly urge you to not renew the contract with LASD. Police have no place in our schools. Instead of providing the envisioned safety and support for students and staff, the Sheriff's Department has had a long history of brutalizing students, instilling fear in Black and the Latinx communities of color, and contributing to the lasting legacy of the school to prison pipeline. This board should reallocate the $1.6 million spent annually supporting this unjust system by investing the money in employing and hiring more school-trained staff to ensure safe and positive school climates, such as community intervention workers, peace builders, behavior interventions, counselors, and any support staff that can and actually prevent safety concerns and conflicts. I strongly urge you to join the 14 other school districts nationwide thus far, including LAUSD, dedicated to racial justice and ending disastrous police policies that have divided and harmed our communities for too long. Today, I ask you, do not renew or sign a contract with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department for the protection, safety, and building of our youth and young adults. The next comment is from Emily Roth. I have personally seen the harm that comes from having police presence on high school campuses. I urge you to consider the benefit of reimagining school safety so that we can disrupt the school to prison pipeline and give students a chance to succeed. I am calling on Antelope Valley Union High School District, AVUHSD, to not renew the contract with the LA County Sheriff's Department for policing in Antelope Valley schools. Furthermore, I'm calling on the district to lead a transparent and inclusive process with students, parents, teachers, and community stakeholders to reimagine how the more than $1.6 million annually could be spent to best support local students. This is an opportunity for school districts to join the other 14 school districts across the nation that have canceled their contracts with law enforcement since the murder of George Floyd last year. You have the opportunity to do right by your students while also being a leader and an example of change for the nation. I sincerely hope you take our pleas seriously. The next comment is from Anne McKeon. I am commenting in support of the letter you received requesting that you cancel the contract with LA Sheriff's Department. We have tried for years to change the relationship. It seems clear it needs to end so that we can create a healthier environment for students and staff alike. That much money will provide so many much needed services and help our students thrive. The next comment is from Concerned. Quotes. On March 2nd, attorneys John Harris and Herbert Hayden won big for the AVUHSD that continuously use reporter Julie Drake to disparage their good names through the articles she produces for the AV Press. Harris and Associates was hired by the trio of present and past former members, Robert Bob Davis, current board member Dr. Victoria Ruffin, and Amanda Perrell, to defend them in a lawsuit files by former AVUHSD General Counsel Bridget Cook for retaliation, discrimination, and other claims. Attorneys Harris and Hayden argued Cook's complaint for retaliation and violation of the whistleblower protection be thrown out, and a Los Angeles Superior Court agreed. Before the March hearing, Drake made another half-baked attempt to tarnish Harris and Associates' reputation. In February, by referring to services performed by them as being unauthorized. Harris and Associates, a prominent Black-owned firm, was hired by the district in 2019 to navigate the school district through several investigations stemming from community concerns regarding racist and discriminatory practices against Black and Brown students and educators in the district. Concern is saying, shame on you folks that would allow this Bridget Cook to receive a dime from the district, but what would be the new money trails run deep? Ask Grady, Wynn, Rush, Dr. Vieira, and his personal attorney, Jay Furnell. The next comment is from the realist Vivian.
I'm sorry, Ms. Ramos, this is Jay Furno. Board President McGrady, we're at 20 minutes, just so you know.
Thank you. How many letters do we have left?
I believe about 7.
Okay, board, it's your call. Let's get a consensus. We have 7 more. Do you want to hear them, or do you want to, we allow 20 minutes?
I'd like to hear the rest of them. This is Miss Burrell.
Okay, Amanda says yes.
Danita says yes.
Danita says yes. Okay.
Dr. Ruffin, yes.
Okay, that's a majority.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So this comment is from the realist Vivian. Happy belated Black History Month, Dr. Victoria Ruffins, the one and only first African-American female woman ever to sit on this stage of the highest plans assembly in the Los Angeles County District in history. I want to say how honored I am, and the smart, educated Black, Hispanic, white, Asians, and every beautiful nationalities that came out to support you. Look at how God works. Shout out to you, Miss Chandlin Williams, who tried to help this district know that parents' voice matter. So many wrongdoings in this district being perpetuated against our Black and brown students while making millions from their presence. What does that sound like, right? A modern day slavery. Shame on you, along with Dan Shai coming after Dr. Ruffin after hearing a chat room of racists and a lady who don't believe Dr. Ruffin does not act like the women of Weinstein or Epstein or impeached President Trump, ruin women's lives. God save them. The next comment is Doretta Thompson. As a part of this campaign, we are calling on the Antelope Valley Union High School District, AVUHSD, to not renew the contract with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department for policing in the Antelope Valley. We are calling for the district to lead a transparent and inclusive process with students, parents, teachers, and community stakeholders to reimagine how the more than $1.6 million annually could be spent to best support local students. It is appreciated to see off-campus suspensions have gone down from 2013 to 2019. Nonetheless, it remains very concerning that while African Americans make up of only 18% of the student population, they continue to make up the majority of these suspensions. What do you think we can do collectively to make continued progress? It is also good to see expulsions dropping dramatically while African American students are no longer the leading group being expelled. They're still overrepresented among expelled students given their overall representation of the student body. Overall, I am interested in finding programs that will assist with improving student achievement and support disruption of the school to prison pipeline. When the environment changes, the students will rise to the expectation. When we lower expectations by criminalizing our students, unfortunately, they will lower their performance and optimism. Let's consider better options, respectfully. The next comment is from Dave Bowman. In recent days, I did contact Mr. Neal, and when asked, he did inform me that he had been authorized by the superintendent to form a committee to consider options for their renewal of the LAUSD contract for armed police in our schools. First, I'd comment that there needs to be further consideration of those options after the public has been heard and formal declarations of intent by AVUHSD regarding the issue, as it is our right as stakeholders and taxpayers. Second, the manner in which the AVUHSD has excluded the public from this dialogue lends to speculation that how this has been done was designed to exclude public participation, prompting calls for the filing and complaint relating to the Brown Act, as well as protest. At this time, I would, per AVUHSD protocol, state that the addition of community interaction be placed on the agenda for the next two AVUHSD board meetings for a period of 45 minutes with time for addressed to 5 minutes or until there are no more requests for comments by the community. Further, that each member of the board state their position on the issue to ensure that during the next election cycle, we, the community, can make an intelligent, informed decision on who we, the people, place on the board are those who represent our interests. The next comment is from Anonymous. To Board Member Ruffin, the way you speak to and about our superintendent, who, by the way, has been in the position for the past 20 plus years, is disgusting. It blows my mind that you are in a leadership position and that you act so immaturely. You cannot speak to the people the way that you do with the position you are in. I am astonished that you have learned nothing by your firing at Oxnard. The way you behave and the things that you will say are not tolerated. Please do us all a favor and send in your resignation from your voluntary position. I pray for you every night, and I pray that you make the right decision, not only for yourself, but for all of us that work for the Antelope Valley Union High School District and who work for the right reasons. No matter your hatred for the superintendent, you should be here for the kids. You act like you are, but we all know you are not. We all know you have your own personal agenda. There is just one question I have for you, and you can respond in your own head. If you are truly here for the kids and trying to make a positive impact, then why do you vote no on things that are directly for kids and would help them succeed? The next comment is from Monica Dobson. Chandalyn Williams, Christina Ramos, Jill McGrady, Danita Wynn, Catherine Taylor, Benita Pintoya, Kathy Mercier, Angela Fields, Jody Sharp, Rachel Orozco, Lisa Potter, Sheree Anderson, Tammy Nichols, Joe Kim, Andrea Wells, Jamie McIver, Yasmin Dorado, Dr. Lisa Shute, Jada Jackson, Dr. Lloyd Dakwa, Deb DeMeglio, Kathy Calvert. The list goes on and on of women in this district who are in positions of leadership. Although there are many, many more that are on the front lines in classrooms, I wanted to recognize you all this Women's History Month. In my years working with you in a professional capacity, I can attest you are all strong, positive role models for our young women to look up to. You are full of integrity, which is desperately needed in this day and time. Thank you for your hard work and dedication to the field of education. The next comment is from Christian Green. Greetings, Superintendent Dr. Vieira, Assistant Superintendents, Governing Board members, teachers, classified staff, parents, and students. I need everyone to think about these words that our founding fathers of America included in our Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I asked my high school class this question today. Do you think that quote is applicable in 2020? A class of young Black and brown kids answered. They all said no. This idea of equality and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness was not intentionally readily available for everyone, but this was the value that America was built on. This idea of freedom to be successful in America should be a basic human right, but it is not for some. In 2021, young Black and brown kids fill our AVUHSD classrooms of almost 80%, but yet are highly disproportionately suspended and expelled. They're dropping out at alarming rates. So I must ask, why is that? I will tell you why. They are overly policed, racially profiled, stigmatized, unappreciated, placed in special education classes, and not given the adequate mental health services needed to deal with life's pressures on and off campuses. Today, our coalition canceled the contract AV submitted to the board and superintendent a proposal not vote to renew the contract for the Sheriff's Department. Research shows, statistics show, and lived experiences show that officers on campus are linked to higher rates of arrest for low-level infractions, higher suspension rates, and lower rates of graduation and college enrollment. It is time that we change this. I ask that you take this proposal very seriously and engage in some deep dialogue to figure out how we can support our students to truly thrive in 2021. I ask that you consider to not renew the contract with the LA Sheriff's Department this coming school year, the next school year, and the following years after that. The last comment this evening is from Rochelle Hightower. As a parent in this district, I would like to say Happy Women's History Month to Dr. Ruffin and all the other women on the board. Dr. Ruffin, thank you for being an example to our young women of color like my daughter. I appreciate you showing how women are shattering glass ceilings and leading the nation towards progress, equity, and social justice. Thank you. That concludes the comments for this evening.
Thank you very much. And we thank our citizens for writing in and letting us know your thoughts. We are now at 7 educational services action items. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees review the proposed revisions to DP /AR for student services as presented. This is a first read for discussion. Do we have any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward to 8A, adoption of the Los Angeles County Plan for Expelled Students. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees adopt the triennial update to the Los Angeles County Plan for Expelled Students. May I have a motion, please?
Danita Nguyen, motion.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Second.
Rush, second.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Any discussion or questions?
Yes, there's some discussion.
Okay.
First of all, I wanted to thank all of the community members who spoke very boldly and courageous about their opinions about our Sheriff's Department. The Los Angeles County Plan for Expelled Students appears to be a great plan that is presented by LACO, Los Angeles County Office of Education. I think overall this is a good general plan. I would like to see information more specific to the expulsions and the strategic plan with Black and Brown students in our district. Some of my concerns, and these are directed for Dr. Vieira, superintendent of our district. What does our data say about the specifics for expelled students in the Antelope Valley Union High School District? For this board meeting, when I looked through this, and I read it several times, on page 2, when they list the profile, LACO provided very specifically about making the school the hub of the community, bridging the digital divide in technology, having and developing collaborative partnerships for students, parents, and the community. So my question to Dr. Vieira is, what are you as our superintendent gonna do, like the community is asking and requesting, to provide the community and the board a specific report and an engagement opportunity for us to really look at those numbers with regard to our Black and Brown students in those expulsions? Are we making our school communities a hub for that conversation? And I think that is critical when we're talking about the ways in which we use this $1.6 million to reimagine those levels of supports for our students. Making the most efficient use of the financial resources so that we can look at the root causes of expulsions and not feed into the pipeline to prison system. What are our collaborative partnerships for students, parents, and the community? There has been multiple meetings within the past 3 to 4 weeks within the community where a lot of voices within our community has felt not heard. And we've heard that today, even in the comments that were just shared. So how are we as a district opening up that dialogue? Teachers in the community have expressed the need to have these conversations. Since the last board meeting, I specifically asked to be invited to these conversations as a board member and as a community member, and I personally haven't been invited into that space. This adoption of the LACO plan is specifically LACO's plan. And I love that they serve as an umbrella for us, but this is parameters. It is not the Antelope Valley Union High School District's plan. We need to come up with our own plan. And I think that this is a grand opportunity for us to be more inclusive and transparent about what does that specifically look like for our district. Again, the LACO plan does not stand in the gap for the Antelope Valley Union High School District's accountability. And I would like to see what this specific plan looks like for our students. 3 board meetings ago, when I went through the progress school reports for each one of our schools, I did not see a detailed plan. If there was no conversation from each one of our schools about even what it could possibly look like reimagining resources for students. What is very clear is some reasons why our expulsions are going down is because students are not in school. When I look through this plan that's provided here on page, I don't know who devises, I'm gonna say under the direction of Deborah DeWardo, she gave an umbrella perspective of a collaboration of all of the schools. And I see segments of things that we do, but it's an assessment of what all schools do within LACO. It is my understanding that the superintendent also met with Mr. Green today about the council, the sheriff's contract that is related to the reasons why Black and brown students are expelled. I would like to be included or understand the ways in which other people within our community can be included on this topic to allow constituents throughout this Antelope Valley an opportunity to be involved and hear about how their children will be protected and able to access their education in the Antelope Valley. Thank you.
I would like to provide some context in terms of this plan. Per Education Code, the LA County Office of Education is required to develop a plan every 3 years that outline the services provided to expelled students from all of the 80 districts that they support. And so all of the districts completed a survey, and this document represents a compilation of that data. And so as part of this process that is mandated by the Ed Code, governing boards are asked from these 80 districts to accept, acknowledge, and to adopt this plan.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none, Mr. Yes?
Oh, sorry about that. I'm sorry. My last minute. I'd like to just express to maybe people who don't understand that Phoenix is the school that if they're expelled goes to Phoenix High School. And in the years that I was previously on the board, I always enjoyed Phoenix's graduations. The students give a little speech of what they feel Phoenix has done for them, or maybe not done for them. But I always appreciated their graduations, and I appreciated talking to the students because they felt that they were given a second chance at Phoenix. And I'm looking forward to visiting the campus again. Thank you.
Yeah, and Mrs. McGrady, I'm sorry, my other computer had got stuck. I wanted to comment back on what Ms. Williams said. Thank you so much for that information. She was exactly right. My other question was, sorry, 1 second, if you can give me 1 minute to cut my light on. I had to move to another area. 1 second. One of the specific things that I was asking Ms. Williams, for us specifically in the Antelope Valley, I know that this is a compilation of what is done in the jurisdiction of LA County. But what I would like for our community to consider, for example, is what are the alternatives for expelled pupils within the district? And that's like what's on page 4 of this alternatives for expulsions, which is a part of the greater conversation when we're considering other ways to handle our students. What this proposal does, which I said like already, I think that this is good for LACO, but what specifically are we doing in our district to address these concerns? I believe if we're more transparent with our community, with our parents, with our students, and we know what we're doing here, it would shed some light on how we can reimagine those levels of supports for the kids here, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you for clarification, and it does. And as part of this process, it is what LACO is doing is ensuring that all districts provide service to students who have been expelled. We have our own community day school, so our kids remain with us. We have a number of programs and services that are in place at our community day school. And yes, we have seen a significant decrease in our expulsions over the past 5 to 6 years. And that's because the work has been intentional with our positive behavior intervention support framework, our student support centers, and the additional counseling supports and programs that we've put in place to address the needs of our students. Expulsions are the last resort, when it comes to addressing the needs of our students. And we have been intentional in terms of really addressing and looking at the misbehaviors from a perspective of addressing the cause and not the symptom of the behavior. Don't get caught up in why, the behavior that's occurring, but why is that behavior occurring? And we've seen much results in that as a reflection of the decrease in our expulsions. There are certain offenses that are considered the big 5 that are, the Ed Code is very strict in terms of those are the types of offenses that school districts do not have flexibility in terms of bringing a recommendation forward. And
Yes.
In these cases as well, in these numbers are those types of offenses as well. But I'd be happy to share.
And I want to give much credit to you, Ms. Williams, and your team. And there has been multiple, at least 2 presentations that I've heard from your team present on this. And I think that that's the exact point. On a grander scale, I don't believe that the community has been involved to the extent that they have been able to hear and massage that messaging and to be a part of that. And I think that that is the door that we need to open as a district, whereby if we're looking at what is presented in here on page 2, making the school a hub of the community and collaborative partnerships of students, parents, and the community. That's in the 4th paragraph in the profile. And that's what I'm asking for. And I believe that that is the outpour and the cry from the community, is to look at the ways in which we can build that partnership as a community and think about the ways in which, when they're talking about how can we reimagine the way that we spend monies to support, and we have done great work. You have hired a lot of support staff, a lot of counselors, a lot of psychiatric social workers, but I believe that it's one thing when it's just said in this space and it's not really massaged out on a greater scale, and to really look at the greater impact of that. So I do want to give you your accolades and the work that is done in that space. But I believe that if the community on a greater scale can see that and really understand the impact. I had a conversation with several people this week myself, and I had to really make it clear that the $1.6 million is not community money, that is money from the general fund within this district. So there is a lot of information that is misconstrued about how monies are spent or where they can go. And so all I'm asking for Dr. Vieira to do is to really open up that communication so that there's clarity within our greater constituents about what can happen and what cannot happen. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Any other comments or discussion? Hearing none, we'll move for the vote. Call for the vote. Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Ms. Perrell?
No.
No. Dr. Ruffin?
For the adoption of this, yes.
We are on 8A, the adoption of the Los Angeles County Plan for Expelled Students. How do you vote?
You asking me again, Mrs. McGrady?
I thought you said, what are we voting on? We're voting on.
I just said yes.
Okay, I didn't hear you. Thank you. Ms. Nguyen?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. McGrady? Yes. That passes 4-1 with the student board member voting yes. We move forward to 9A. This is an action item, approval of short-term staff permits. These are STIPs. It's possible we could do both of these together. Board, are you willing to vote on both of these together?
Yes.
Rush, yes.
Yep. Okay. That gives us 3. So it is, may I have a motion? Then we'll combine the 2 together. May I have a motion?
I move that we approve 9A and 9B.
Okay, and that's Ms. Nguyen, motion, and I need a second.
Rush, second.
Thank you. Okay, we have a second. And any discussion or comments? Hearing none. Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Perrell.
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Aye. And Ms. McGrady, aye. And so that is unanimous. We all voted aye. Okay, we move forward to 10A, the second interim. I believe we need to get a motion on first. It's recommended that the Board of Trustees review the second interim report and certify the financial condition of the district as positive. May I have a motion?
Anita Nguyen makes the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. I need a second.
Rush, second.
Rush, thank you. And I believe, Mr. Hawkins, you have a report for us. A presentation. Thank you.
Yes, I do. Good evening, board and the community members. I'm here to provide an overview of our second interim report. This is a financial report is reviewed and approved from LACO, and then it is sent to the state of California to the state controller's office for their review and approval as well. Next slide, please. I'd like to take a quick moment to review the budget life cycle for everyone. We start the actual budget process with the governor's official state budget, which is produced in January. The governor then revises the state budget in May, and in between, we look at our current spending, our educational priorities for the next year, and what our fixed expenses will be. We finalize the budget with the governor's May revision. The legislature then acts in June to pass a state budget. We then make 2 revisions to our budget at the first and second interim. Tonight's our second revision to the budget based on actual activity for this past year through January. Now, the budget will conclude with the unaudited actuals report in September, and then finalized with our outside auditor report, which we bring to the board each year. Due to COVID this past year, we'll bring last year's auditor's report to the board at our April meeting. Next slide, please. The budget is adjusted throughout the year in order to meet student needs and to incorporate new and changing revenues and expenditures. The second interim report reflects the incorporation of the board-approved salary increases, the anticipated LCFF revenues and the multi-year projections, and the upward adjustments of the COLA for years 2021 through 2023. We also reflect any anticipated savings from vacant positions, unused funds, and then also the increased spending of the federal and state CARES Act funds that we have received. Also reflected are budgetary savings due to programs impacted by regional distancing orders, such as certain transportation costs this year and extra hours for some of our staff. Additionally, the governor's budget proposal reflects a small increase in the state's buy down for certificated pension costs. That's our STRS rate. So you can see there's a slight decrease in our STRS rate in 21-22 from what we initially projected to what the governor's budget for next year is showing. Well, yes, is showing for the state legislature to approve. Next slide, please. The LCFF funding profile, this is our unrestricted general fund. This is how our profile works. We receive a base grant to operate the day-to-day operations of the school district. That's down on the, you see on the lower right-hand side, we have an adjusted base grant. This year is for $188,357,720. Now that takes care of all of the basic needs of our school district and our students. We then receive another $40 million in targeted funding. That's our supplemental concentration funding. And then finally, we receive a small amount, about 1.9 million for transportation. That's our home to school transportation that has, and special education transportation. So that has to do with our AVUHSD, the student transportation JPA that we're involved with. Next slide, please. Here is our average daily attendance and looking at it over the past years. For this year, the state is holding all school districts harmless for ADA. So this means that they locked in our ADA for the 19-20 year. So we're locked into that number for this year in 2021. We had 19,678 as an ADA. That's average daily attendance of our students. Currently, we're tracking about 470 students ahead over last year, meaning if we look at day 126 for the district this year, compare it to day 126 last year, we have about 470 more students enrolled in school, which that's very positive. Now you'll notice though, with the projections, the budgeting purposes, we will continue to use the same ADA number for next year's budget. We will, should our ADA increase during the school year, and we do P2 in March of each year, we will receive the higher of the actual for next year or current year of 19,678. So we'll budget for our ADA at our current level, and then we'll make adjustments in the first and second interims as we move forward next year. Next slide, please. When we look at our multi-year revenues, this is our current year and then our next 2 years out. Our restricted funds have increased due to some larger carryover balances in our federal Title I funding. Last year, we did not have to spend down because of COVID, but we are required to meet the 15% threshold this year. The unrestricted revenue has increased sharply from last year due to the Federal CARES Act. Now, I've not included the CARES Act 2 funding, nor the proposed or the just recently approved from the state of the state school opening funds, as we are waiting for specific appropriation and spending guidelines on those dollars. Secondly, and looking at roughly the legislation and reading it, we do not expect to receive the full amount of either one of those programs in our current year of 2021. The funding allocations may be realized over the next 2 years, possibly 3, based on our spending, the spending criteria given to us. Based on our projections, we are expecting a COLA in the next 2 years, which does account for the growth for some of our increased funding. The CARES Act 2, meaning the bill that was approved back in December 27th, I believe, should be around $26 million to our district. Now, there are specific rules and specific spending limitations, and as we move through and start to receive that funding, possibly in April or May, I'll bring back to the board those restrictions that we do have to have on those funds. Next slide, please. Currently, this year, you can see our unrestricted and then our restricted. Currently, we spend about 82% of our unrestricted funds for our personnel costs. The remaining 19% is distributed between our services and our supplies. And so you can see our biggest expenses for both our unrestricted funds and our restricted funds are their salaries and benefits. We do pick up a bigger piece of the pie for supplies and services using our restricted dollars. Restricted dollars are federal, like Title I dollars. And so those are services and supplies that directly benefit students. Next slide, please. Here we can see what our total general fund expenditures are, and I break them out, and this is just the general fund here. And if we look at it as $1, we spend 33 cents on our teachers, 13 cents on classified, 24 cents on our benefits, for a total of about 71 cents of every dollar in our total general fund goes to employees. Then we spend about 12 cents on books and supplies, 16 service and operating, 2% on capital outlay, and a 0.05 on transfers out. Our total expenditures anticipated for this year are $320,867,250, and that does include the CARES Act and the state ESSER grants that we have received so far this year for COVID relief expenditures. Next slide, please. This is a chart that just shows the trend of the growing contribution from LEAs, local education agencies, or school districts, from our unrestricted funds that are needed to backfill the lack of funding from the state and the federal for our special education expenditures in the last decade. So if you go back and look at 2010-11, school districts in general had to pick up almost 53% of special education expenditures. Today, or last year, school districts are required to pick up 67%. So the percentage share by the state and the federal government has decreased significantly for our special education expenditures, and yet our costs do still continue to rise. Next slide, please. When we look at our unrestricted fund balance, we're primarily looking at the expenditures, and these include the transfers of funds from general fund to Fund 17. The district is structurally balanced. We continue to support a positive ending fund balance as a hedge against future decreases in funding. The unassigned balance equals about 5.5% above our required reserve. Or if we look at that $17.8 million, that's a little bit less than 1 month's salary for all of our employees. The state is currently projecting revenue deficits in the next 2 years. Next slide, please. When we look at our multi-year plan for our fund balance, the targeted carryover, which would be the 4 lines from the bottom, assigned targeted carryover, we're looking at about $3.4 million. That's based on our current spending projections. We are anticipating a similar carryover of funds in each of the next years. Until we have specific spending plans for the future are approved, we will continue to accrue these dollars for the benefit of all students. The cost of STRS and PERS is factored into the future years, along with an increase to special education program costs, future revenue, is based on ADA and updated COLA projections. We are showing that for the next 3 years, we are financially stable and exceed the state minimum requirements. Next slide, please. I would be happy to answer any questions regarding the second interim report for the district.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. We appreciate it very much. Board members, does anyone have a question for him? Okay, hearing none. Now, yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to thank Mr. Hawkins for his presentation and making it in a form that is fairly easy to read and understand. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
You are very welcome.
Any other comments or questions?
I just would like to know when the board is going to get a copy of this presentation to review.
Yes, Dr. Ruffin. Unfortunately, I just finished it about 3 hours ago, but we will send a copy out to you by email to all board members tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Anything else? Okay, Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Ms. Perrell?
No.
No. Dr. Ruffin?
No.
No. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes, and Ms. McGrady is a yes. That passes 3-2 with a student board member voting with us, and that will approve the second interim financial report. So we now move on to B, the interfund transfer. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees adopt resolution number 2020-21-22, authorizing interfund transfer of funds for fiscal year 2020-21 as presented. May I have a motion?
Motion, Rush.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Second?
Second, Nguyen.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Any discussion?
Yes, this is Dr. Ruffin.
Okay. What is your question?
And I just discussion.
Discussion, okay.
So I did have an opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Vieira, for having the auditor, Mr. Royce Townsend. He contacted me a few weeks ago. We scheduled a meeting, a time to meet, and we did for the district. And I had an opportunity to express my concerns with the finances of the district. After my talk with him, my decision about the financial transparency with our district hasn't changed, and it's my understanding that he is going to come and do a presentation in the near future to our board. Thank you.
Yes. Any discussion about this item on the agenda? Okay, Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Ms. Perrell?
No.
No. Dr. Ruffin?
No.
No. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. McGrady? Yes. So we will be able to, that passes with a 3-2 with a student board member voting with us. So we will be able to do the interfund transfer that we need to do so we can pay bills. On C, we're adopting the resolution for National Nutrition Month. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees adopt resolution number 2020-21-23 in honor of National Nutrition Month. Could I have a motion, please?
Rush, motion.
Oh, okay, Rush, and I could I have a second?
I second Anita Nguyen.
Thank you. Any discussion or comments?
Madam
Yep.
President, I just have one. I want to thank Mr. Cook and his team for doing such a good job of feeding our students and making sure that they provide healthy meals for all the students who want them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Perrell.
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Ruffin.
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Nguyen.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush.
Yes.
Yes, and Ms. McGrady is a yes. That is a unanimous yes vote. So we are honoring National Nutrition Month. So moving forward, we are at D. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the contract with Gary Little Construction Incorporated and authorize Brian Hawkins, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, to execute the agreement on behalf of the Board of Trustees. May I have a motion?
This is Danita Nguyen. I move.
Thank you, Danita Nguyen. And I need a second.
I'll second Rush.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none. Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Ms. Perrell?
No.
No. Dr. Ruffin?
No.
No. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. McGrady is a yes. That passes 3-2 with the student board member voting with us. Moving forward to E, this is it is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the contract with Prestige Striping Services Incorporated, DBA is Prestige Paving Company, and authorize Brian Hawkins, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, to execute the agreement on behalf of the Board of Trustees. May I have a motion?
Motion, Amanda Perrell.
Thank you, Ms. Perrell. A second?
Second, Rush.
Okay, Mr. Rush, thank you. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Perrell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. McGrady is yes. That is unanimous. It passes. We are at F. The contract to the lowest responsible bidder for the gas line replacement at Palmdale High School. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the contract with MBS Engineering and authorize Brian Hawkins, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, to execute the agreement on behalf of the Board of Trustees. May I have a motion?
Motion, Ms. Perrell.
Perrell, thank you. A second?
Second, Nguyen.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Second, any discussion, questions, or comments?
I just have a question about how long do you think this project will take?
Yes, it will be done in phases. So we anticipate somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 90 days. This part of the work has to go through the main campus. And when we do the work on that, there will be fences put up and safety barriers to keep students out of the area where the construction is happening.
Thank you.
Any other questions, discussions? Hearing none, Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Ms. Perrell?
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Ruffin?
Hold on one second. I'm trying to flip my page. Yes.
Yes. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. McGrady is a yes. That is unanimous. It passes. We are to the consent agenda. Actions proposed for the consent agenda are items consistent with adopted policies and approved practices of the district and are deemed routine in nature. The board will be asked to approve all of the items in the consent agenda by a single vote unless any member of the board asks that an item be removed from the consent agenda to be considered and discussed separately. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the items listed in the consent agenda category, the following consent agenda categories: educational services, personnel services, and business services as presented. May I have a motion?
Motion, Perrell.
Perrell, thank you. A second?
I second Nguyen.
Thank you. Ms. Nguyen is a second. Any discussion or comments, or does anybody want to pull anything for discussion or separate votes?
Yes. Dr. Ruffin, yes.
Okay, could you tell us which ones? And let's start with the ones that are for discussion.
I don't have any for discussion. Well, one discussion is 16A. Just for the record, I don't know if it needs to be discussed again, Mrs. McGrady, but I bring it up just for the record that I sent Mrs. Orozco my board minutes, my board comments from the last board meeting, and she has them for the record.
And that's 16A?
It's just for the last board meeting. It's just for the record for this board meeting. But I want to pull 2102.
Okay, so just to clarify, you're talking about the minutes from the last board meeting. It's not.
Yeah, I don't know if they
16A.
need to be added to this one, or is that a?
That would be at the next time. This 16A on this one is to adjourn to closed session. So,
okay,
yeah,
that's fine. So
okay.
For this one, I want to pull 2102846 for a separate vote.
2102846, and which number is it under?
It's under purchase order schedule board meeting 31021, page 1 of 3.
Okay, would that be under business services, A, B, C, D?
It is under 14C.
Okay, that's what I was asking, 14C. And then your number is 2102846. Is that correct?
2102846, yes.
Okay, and this is for a separate vote, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
That's it? Okay, what I'd like to suggest then is that we vote on everything else, the consent agenda as listed, and then we will pull that and have discussion and take a separate vote. Is that acceptable with everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, do we have any discussion on anything else, or anybody wants to, or are we moving forward on all of the rest of it? Everything else other than that one piece, we are now calling for the vote. So Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Perrell?
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes, and Ms. McGrady is a yes. So everything else is a unanimous vote. So then we will go back and pull that. And that is, let me pull that up and take a look. That is, okay, this is the legal services for Fagan, Friedman, and Frost. And I guess, Mr. Hawkins, that would be something that, could you answer the information on that for her?
Yes, absolutely. This is the final payment for the special education case that we had that we shared with the SELPA. We did it in a separate purchase order so we can track it. But this is one where we paid half of the bill and the SELPA here paid the other half. And this is the last of those payments, I believe.
Okay, so thank you for that. What I'm not clear on is, I believe 2 board meetings ago, the board granted $500,000 contract to Fagan, Freeman, and Full Frost. So I don't understand why this $3,142.50 is not coming out of that PO.
Because that PO is for our general fund and we pay directly for those services. This is a service where we split with the SELPA. So in order to keep our accounts straight for proper accounting, we wanted to create a separate PO so we can keep track of how much we have paid on paid with the SELPA for that one specific case. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay. We work with our SELPA, and in a particular case, the SELPA pays half of the costs for defending, and the district's paying the other half. Because this is a special ed case where we are splitting the cost with the local SELPA, I wanted to keep it separate from our general legal bills. So therefore, we created a separate purchase order for just this case.
It still does not explain why we just approve a $500,000 PO for the same company and why we would have to initiate another one. But I heard exactly what you said. Even with your explanation, it doesn't explain to me why there's a difference. Is this what we should expect every time there's a payment with the SELPA, that we will see another a separate PO for unrestricted? I mean, I don't understand why we would give such a large amount of monies for one PO and then we're still having separate funding sources to account for payments.
The funding source is the same. This allows us to split it out in an accounting fashion so we can account separately for it because we don't pay the whole bill, we split the bill. And I could have put it under that, but we wanted to be able to identify the costs associated with these SELPAs, with the lawsuit against the SELPA and us.
Okay, thank you.
And F3 bills us separately because they don't put it in our general monthly bill. We get a totally separate bill that we split with the SELPA. So that's why I'm just keeping it separate from purely an accounting and transparency issue.
Thank you. And I made a mistake. I should have asked for a motion in a second before we got started with the discussion. Could I now go back and get a motion for this so we could have had that discussion?
Motion, Rush.
Thank you, Mr. Rush, and I need a second.
Second, Dr. Ruffin.
Okay, Dr. Ruffin has a second. And Dr. Ruffin, did that clarify it for you? Are you able to vote now?
I can vote, but I'm still not clear, but thank you for trying. I appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on this? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Perrell?
No.
No. Dr. Ruffin?
No.
No. And Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes, and Ms. McGrady is yes, so that passes 3-2 with the student board member voting with us. We now, let's see, I'm trying to look down, go to the board and superintendent, calling from the board. Mr. Johnson, do you have anything you'd like to share with us tonight?
Yeah, I'd first like to say happy birthday to John Rush. I've appreciated working with you the last couple years. So, I'd also like to say to Mr. Shy, if he's listening, that I live on hope that the Giants will beat the Dodgers out for the division this year. So I'd like to say that publicly. I'd like to give some words of appreciation to our ASB classes around the district. I know that participation and motivation haven't been at all-time highs in this distance learning, but I think through persistence, they're doing a great job. Then I'd like to share, I'm on 2 district committees currently. The graduation committee will meet for the first time tomorrow, and I'm hoping that we are able to share some different ideas to honor our seniors, and thank Ms. Ramos for putting that together. The other committee is the LA Sheriff's Department contract. I've enjoyed listening to the various opinions and perspectives of students, community members, teachers, and different staff members. I hope that we can continue to have these important conversations, including with our next meeting on Monday. I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of students on this issue, and I think that we can all agree that safety is our top priority. And I look forward to future conversations on how we can best utilize our SROs on our campuses. That is all I have, Ms. McGrady.
Thank you so much. Ms. Perrell?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes, thank you, Ms. McGrady. Happy Women's History Month. Power to every mother, sister, aunt, cousin, and daughter. Today, I am channeling one of my sheroes, the late Ida B. Wells Barnett. She was fired from her job. Then she went on to become one of the civil rights movement leaders that championed me having an opportunity to sit on this board today. It is because of her that I am able to stand in the gap of my ancestors. I honor her for the work she did as one of the first persons to stage a transit boycott, an initial founder of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. She fought for equity of women and that of Black women and anti-lynching, to mention a few. We shared as members of the illustrious Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a sisterhood that's dedicated to 108 years of service. Her story, like another soror of ours, Jane Mulholland, is my legacy and the reason I am forever committed to the work I do on this board and for all students. I want to recognize a young scholar from SOAR High School who has already been accepted to one of her top colleges. Shout out to her teachers, her counselors, her family, her mom, dad, siblings, her peers at SOAR who continue to support her and push her forward. I also want to send love and light to all of the seniors, the class of 2021. You are well on your way to accomplishing your goals. Be steadfast in your vision and reaching for your dreams. Thank you to the community members for constantly reaching out to me about your concerns. Thank you all for sharing your concerns and giving your input today about the ways in which we can do better for our Black and Brown students. I want to acknowledge Mrs. Williams for the work that she's doing and leading with her team about expulsions in our district. They are working hard. I'm looking forward to more transparency in that way for our constituents and our community, and I'm confident that we will come to a great resolve. I also want to give a special shout out to Mrs. Orozco for all of the work that she does to support our staff, our students, our families. She is greatly, greatly appreciated. Next, I want to, again, just really try to focus on this board. We have yet to look at the ways in which we can look at workshops that I suggested a few months ago. The hateful attacks against me from, one of my colleagues has to stop. And the encouragement, that she's getting from our district council has to stop fueling her. It is clear you want me to stop my speech, and you don't have a right to do that. I'm speaking on topics related to the agenda. You do not have to like what I'm saying, but you should respect it. The constant attacks and disrespect go against our board bylaws. No one board member has any higher authority than the next. Also, Ms. McGrady, I would appreciate that when I do not agree with what you want, that your side comments stop. You do not have the authority to spread falsehoods or obstruct the vote that I say. I'm going to really look into seeking personal legal counsel for defamation, because this is just continuing. When I did not vote on the RFP at the last board meeting, you said that I was voting not to feed children. What does not voting on an RFP have to do with not feeding children? Nothing. It has everything with me not being lockstep in somebody that you guys can control. Fresh fruit our kids get fresh fruit from Pinco. That doesn't have anything to do with my vote against an RFP. Your comments on the board aligns with the defamation comments that come from Julie Drakes that she writes in the paper, and it really is just propaganda. Ms. Nguyen, usually I never comment in half-truths and innuendos ever. You made a comment about your onboarding. I am not sure why you have interest in my process, and I'm sure you have some intention. What happened to me is a fact, and I would appreciate if you would please just keep my name out of your mouth. I am praying for our students in this district. I am praying for our community. And I am hopeful that as we move forward in the future, that all of the concerns that were expressed tonight from our community will not just be concerns that are valued by a few privileged individuals, but will be opened up to those individuals who are seeking community resolve and transparency. Be safe, be well.
Thank you. Ms. Nguyen?
Yes, I have a couple of comments. Last Friday, when I stopped by to pick up my script order, I noticed that Knight High School was having a drive-by award ceremony. I stayed and I had so much fun. Staff was truly excited for the award-winning students, and their care and their concern was so evident. They applauded each student as they drove up to receive their awards, and I want to thank Knight High School's staff for letting me participate. I've heard quite a few comments about the vaccines for employees, and the majority, well, actually all of the comments have been to say how smoothly it's run. I know I mentioned it already, that I wanted to thank Personnel's department for putting this together so wonderfully for the people in our district. The Reader's Digest says that March is the best month of the year. March 5th is the day we celebrate employees on Employee Appreciation Day, and I personally like to thank employees almost every single day. March 8th, we get to celebrate women, and trust me, it's always good to celebrate women. March is when we have the change to daylight savings, the first day of spring. We celebrate March Madness, National Nutrition Month, National Quilting Day, and it's the month that we celebrate I Want You to Be Happy Day, and I do want you to be happy. I have one request, and I was wondering if staff could reach out to the parent of the girls volleyball team that made a comment. I don't personally know what the rules and regulations are about girls volleyball this year, but I can feel his daughter's concern about not getting to play, and I would appreciate it if staff would reach out to that parent, if you can. I have an observation. It is interesting how an act of concern for a fellow board member by getting a drug test can meet with such cruel criticism. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rush?
Oh, I just like to say I hope everybody that wants to get the vaccine gets it. I think Brett's done a great job, Brett and his staff, getting everything lined up, mainly his staff. But like to give everybody their credit for that. And just thanks for all your hard work. It seems like we're progressing a little bit towards getting back to where everything should be. And thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. And by the way, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you all for listening in tonight. I'm very happy we've been able to help a large number of our employees receive the COVID vaccine this week. And I thank all of those involved in the organization and administration of the vaccine. But as we learned tonight, particularly Christina Ramos and Danny Ramos and the personnel staff, thank you so much for doing this. And it does lighten my heart to think that we're going to be able to bring kids back, our students back. And I had to drive to Dodger Stadium to get mine, but I'm telling you, it makes me feel a lot safer to be out and about having 2 vaccines on board. I'm extremely happy that we're moving toward the goal of having our students back on campus. And I thank all of you for all your efforts this past year. It's been quite a year. And I'm sure we've all learned things that we will never forget. But thank you for all your work. Our next scheduled board meeting is April 21st. And once again, I say thank you, stay safe. And Dr. Vieira.
Just briefly, first and foremost, a happy Women's History Month. A couple acknowledgements. food services, well-deserved recognition from legislation this evening. Joe Cook, you're doing a great job, and all your staff as well. Mr. Rush, happy birthday. Didn't know it was your birthday, so I hope you enjoy that. I would like to make a brief comment, a shout out to Mr. Mercier, who's our principal at Courtsville High School, was named the AXA Region 15 Secondary Administrator of the Year and is now competing at the state level for Administrator of the Year. So your efforts don't go unnoticed, and I appreciate the work you do out there. Also, may not seem like it, but we got spring break coming up here in another week or so. So I wish all of you a little time to rest, maybe rejuvenate a little bit, and be safe. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Vieira. We are almost finished. I have a readout from closed session. During closed session, the board, we actually met closed session tonight. During closed session, the board held a conference with labor negotiator, Mr. Brett Neal, regarding certificated bargaining, classified bargaining unit, and unrepresented group, and the board took no action. During closed session, the board considered a public employee discipline, dismissal, release, reassignment, non-reelect, and the board took no action. During closed session, the board considered case number 20-STCV32678 of existing litigation pursuant to subdivision E3 of section 54956.9, and the board gave direction. Finally, during closed session, the board considered one case of anticipated litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 or 3 of subdivision D of section 54956.9, and the board took no action. That concludes our meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move
Rush,
that we
motion.
adjourn. Danita
Okay.
Nguyen.
Okay, I think I heard Ms. Nguyen first, and Mr. Rush will put you as a second. Do we have any discussion or comments before we dismiss? Before we vote? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Perrell?
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes. And Ms. McGrady, yes. So that is unanimous. We are adjourned. We will see you next month, if not before. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.